Alright, here we go, Rams. It is our Unit 11 and 12, Equations and Inequality Review. Here we go. Please show all work on the review. So if you're at home, make sure you are showing your work to be able to answer the questions through the side puzzle. Alright, Mr. Smith has a maximum of $50 to spend at the museum. A ticket to the museum costs $7. He can spend P dollars to buy other things at the museum. Which inequality can be used to find the possible values for P? Okay, so we have already defined our variable, which is P. And then we need to remember our key context clues, which is maximum. So is that going to be greater than, less than or equal to, or greater than or equal to? And remember, he is buying a ticket that costs $7. So remember how we solve these? The way that we would solve them in our head, we use the inverse of how we would represent the problem with an inequality. So if we're subtracting in our head to solve, we can mark out the subtraction problems because we're going to use the inverse of subtraction to write out the inequality represent the situation. So which situation would represent the inequality to find the possible values for P? Okay, so we have P. So you would add 7 to his cost, which would be less than or equal to 50. So your answer is D. Good job, Rams. Okay, number 2. Which number line represents the solution for 8 times x is greater than 48? So this one we can just solve, then match the graph. That matches our inequality. So remember, when the number is smooshed up to the variable with no operation in between, that means we're dividing, or we're multiplying, we're multiplying to find a number that is greater than 48. So I'm going to divide each side by 8, divide by 8, divide by 8. 8 divided by 8 is 1, which leaves me with x. So I have x is greater than 48 divided by 8 is 6. And so now we want to find out which number line represents the solution for x is greater than 6. Well, I know that it's greater than, so that means that's any value that is greater than 6, so it's not going to include 6. So A and B are out. So now it's between C and D, so I have a 50-50 chance. Well, x needs to be greater than 6, so if it's going to the right of 6, that means my numbers are going to be greater than 6, so my answer is D. Good job. Alright, next one, we need to match the problem situation that corresponds to the inequality 20 is less than 2.5 times x. Okay, so here we go. Marcus exercises 2.5 minutes for every 1 minute that he sits. How many minutes x does Marcus sit if the number of minutes he exercises is greater than 20? Okay, could that be a possible answer? Well, it could be, because when I multiply this number, any number of these, 20 is going to be less than that number, so that means that these numbers, when I multiply, need to be more than 20 or greater than 20. So we'll just put a question mark there. D. Marcus has ridden his bike 2.5 kilometers so far. How many more kilometers x does he need to ride his bike to reach a total distance of 20? So remember, when we're working with comparing numbers, if I had 6 jelly beans and you have 4 jelly beans, how many more jelly beans do I have than you have? So think about that. How would we compare that? So Marcus will skip rope for 2.5 hours this week. How many more hours x would he need to skip rope in order to skip more than 20 hours this week? So remember, how many more hours? Again, that's another comparison problem. Marcus jogs 2.5 miles every 1 mile that he walks. How many miles X does Marcus walk if the number of miles he jogs equals 20? So right there, that's a big hint that that would be a equation instead of an equality. All right, so go pick your answer. Okay, so your correct answer is going to be F. Good job, Rams. So remember, it's going to be greater than 20. So when I multiply these two numbers, it needs to be, this number needs to be more than 20. So 20 is going to be less than my answer over here. Good job. All right, number 4. Evelyn plans to go to the fair with 3 of her friends. She needs to earn at least $60 to attend the fair. Evelyn earns $5 per hour babysitting. The inequality shown can be used to find H, the number of hours, so our variables defined, she will need to work in order to have enough money to go to the fair with her friends. Which inequality represents all the possible values of H? Okay, so to help us here, we're going to look at our key words, which is at least. So we need to remember is that greater than or equal to, greater than, less than or equal to, or less than. So here we go. Right now we're going to solve to figure out how many hours she must work. Well, look here. The inequality is already written for you. So it's 5 times H is greater than or equal to 60, which means she needs to work this many hours or more to earn $60. So we're going to divide each side. So we're multiplying. So we divide each side by 5 and each side by 5. So go ahead and solve that and answer your question. All right. So 5 divided by 5 is H. So we have H is greater than or equal to 12. So the answer is going to be B. Good job, Rams. All right, number 5. Which situation cannot be represented by the equation x minus 5 7/10 equals 3 25/100? Okay, so we're looking for the one that cannot. All right, F. Felix had a board that was x feet long. He removed 7 5 7/10 feet. Felix then had 3 25/100 feet left. What was the original length of the board? Okay, so that could actually match. So that could be represented by the equation, but we're looking for cannot. Ginger received X dollars to go to the movies. Her ticket cost $5.70, and she had $3.25 left. How much money did Ginger take to the movies? Well, that could be one of the situations. So remember, we're looking for cannot. Anna sewed 5 7/10 meters of trim around the rug. She then sewed 3 25/100 meters of trim on a cushion. How much more trim X did Anna sew on the rug than the cushion? All right, so let's put a question mark there. So Fabiola spent $5.70 of the X dollars she had in her wallet. She now has $3.25 in her wallet. What was the original amount of money Fabiola had in her wallet? Well, J sounds like G, where they both had movies in their wallet and then they spent $5.70 and they had $3.25, so we need to find the original amount they started with. You can't have two right answers, so it's not going to be G or H because they both match. So now we have a 50-50 chance between F and H, so tell me what you think. All right, Good job, Rams. Now we're going to go answer this. Okay, so let's tell the difference between F and H. So Anna sewed 5 and 7/10 meters. So this is of trim around a rug. So this is saying that the 5 and 7/10 meters would be the total. So it's saying this would be the total she started out with. Okay. And then she sewed 3 and 25/100 around the cushion. And then it asks how much more trim X did she sew on the rug. So this is indicating that you're adding these together to equal X. So this would not represent the situation. So this is your correct answer. Good job, Rams. All right, number 6. What value of X makes the equation true? Okay, so here we got to make sure we are following our integer rules. So there's 2 ways you can solve this. You can solve the equation with inverse operations. So you could use inverse operations, or you could use substitution. So remember, substitution is plugging in each one of these values for X. Let's plug these in for X, and then add them to negative 150 to see which one equals negative 90. All right, so choose which one you'd like to do and answer the question. Okay, now we are going to solve for the answer. So I'm going to use inverse operations, so I have a negative 150. So what I do to one side, I do to the other. So I'm going to get rid of it with a positive 150 because my goal is to isolate the variable. So I get X equals, so these cancel out, and I'm going to add 150. I got to remember I have a negative 90, so I have numbers with 2 different signs. So I subtract and keep the sign of the higher absolute value number, which is 150. So then I have a positive 60, which is my answer, so my answer is B. Okay, moving on. A student needs to collect at least 12 insects for a science project. The student has already collected 4 insects. The inequality shown can be used to find X, the number of insects the student will still need. Okay, which inequality represents the solution set for this situation? Okay, you already have your inequality written for you. So you are going to go ahead and solve for the solution set. So we just did this one on the front, or with the hours and Evelyn babysitting. So go ahead and answer your question, and we will go over it. All right, so now we know that same steps as solving an equation. What you do to one side, you do to the other, and use inverse operations. So we're adding 4, so I'm going to subtract 4 on each side. So this plus 4 and minus 4, they cancel out, so our variable gets isolated. Carry down my sign. 12 minus 4 is 8, so F and G are out, and I have X is greater than or equal to 8. So my answer is H. Alright, number 8. Sid drove 3 miles to the lumber yard. How many yards did Sid drive? Okay, so what are we given here? We're given miles. And we are going to yards. So this is our unit conversion question. So how many miles are in yards? So we have 1 mile to 1,760 yards. And we want to know how many yards are in 3 miles. Okay, so now how do I go from 1 to 1,760? I multiply by 1,760, and what I do to one side, I do to the other. Alright, so go find your answer. Okay, good job. Your answer is D. Alright, number 9. Alright, here we go. Number 8. Miss Wright used 17 gallon and 4 cups of paint to repaint her house. How many cups of paint did Miss Wright use? Okay, another unit conversion question. Okay, so right here we have 17 gallons and 4 cups. So we are going to convert 17 gallons into cups, and then we need to add the last 4 cups once we find how many cups are in 17 gallons. Okay, so I'm going to set up 3 ratio tables here because I know dimensional analysis can be hard. So I'm going to do this step by step. So looking at my sheet, I'm going to go from gallons to quarts. And then I'm going to need to go to quarts to pints, and then pints to cups. Okay, so here we go. I have 1 gallon to 4 quarts, and then I have 1 quart to 2 pints, and of course 1 pint to 2 cups. Now I'm going to start converting everything. So I start with 17 gallons, and I'm trying to figure out how many quarts are there in 17 gallons. Well, again, how do I get from 1 to 4? Well, I multiply by 4. So I'm going to multiply this by 4, and I get 68 quarts. Now I'm going to take that 68, and I have 68 quarts. Now I'm going to turn that into pints. So 1 times 2. What I do to one side, I do to the other. So 68 times 2 gives me 136. Now I have 136 pints, but remember, I'm looking for how many cups, so I need to go to cups. So I have 136. Now pints to cups is 2. 1 to 2, I multiply by 2. What I do to one side, I do to the other, so I also multiply 2, and I get 272. Am I done? No, because remember, it was 17 gallons and 4 cups, so I go over here and I do 272 plus the 4 cups that I still have, which gives me 276 cups. Alright, good job, Rams. My answer is D. Okay, number 10. Kendra works 8 hours a day. She sees approximately 5 patients a day, which takes 75% of her time at work. How many hours a day does she see patients? Okay, so this is going to be your percent proportion question. So we're going to identify our part, our whole, and our percent. Okay, so right here, we know that Kendra works 8 hours a day. She sees 5 patients. It takes 75% of her time. How many hours? Okay, so we're not finding patients. We're finding how many hours, so we're talking about her time here. So your part will be 8. We're looking for the whole because we're trying to find hours. And then our percent is 75%. So we have 8 over x equals percent over 100, which is 75%. Good job. Now 8 doesn't go into 75, so scale factor not there, so we can cross multiply and divide. So right now we have 75x equals 800, and remember I'm going to be dividing by 75 because I need to isolate the variable. Divide by 75. So I'm going to let you do that and just go to the tenths place and you will have that many hours. Alright, good job, Rams, and I'll let you answer that in the Ed puzzle. Okay. Number 11. Which of the following expressions results in a product greater than 45? Circle your answer. Explain your answer. Okay, so we're using reasonable for this. As you look at 1, 2, 3, 4, which answers would be greater than 45 and why? So you're going to explain right here, and you can also put it in the open-ended question in the Ed puzzle. Alright, so now, right here, here we go. 2 and 3. These two answers are going to be greater than 45 Because why? Because 45 is being multiplied by a number greater than 1. Good job. So remember, anything you multiply a number by 1, you get the same number back. So 45 times 1 would be 45. So then if I multiply anything greater than 1, it's going to be greater than 45. Good job, Rams. Alright, right here, number 12. Which expression has a value of negative 22? So right here, we're going to have to follow our order of operations and our integer rules to make sure we come out with the right one that has negative 22, or you may come out with 2 right answers, and we are not going to have 2 right answers. Alright, so I'll give you some time to go do that and then answer it on the Ed puzzle. Okay, let's look at A. A, what comes first in our order of operations? Well, division is going to come first in this one. So we are going to write out, so I'm going to have 8 minus negative 3 plus negative 11. Now, I do my keep, change, change. This turns into 8 plus 3. So 8 plus 3 plus negative 11. That gives me 11 plus negative 11, which equals 0. So A is not a correct answer. So let's go check out B. Well, B, I'm just going to be working right to left because it's all addition and subtraction. So here we go. So I'm going to have negative 5. So negative 5 minus negative 8 minus 1. So keep, change, change. This gives me negative 5 plus 8 minus 1, which turns into 3 minus 1, which equals 2. So B is out. Okay, let's look at C. C, I have negative 6 times 2 minus negative 15. So multiplication comes first here, so we're going to have negative 12 minus negative 15, which turns into negative 12 plus 15, which equals 3, so C is out. So let's check and make sure D is our correct answer. So negative 5 times 2 is negative 10 minus 12, so that turns into negative 10 plus negative 12, and that gives me negative 22. So the correct answer is D. Good job, Rams. Okay, the last question. A pan of brownies recipe calls for 2/3 cup of butter. If Rebecca only wants to make half the pan of brownies, which is half the recipe, how much butter will she need to make the brownies? Okay, how would you solve this question? What operation would you use to solve this question? Would she need more than or less than 2/3 cup of butter? Explain your reasoning. Okay, so in this Ed puzzle, you're going to go ahead and you're just going to answer the correct answer and tell me what operation would you use to solve this. Okay, so here you go. Now to answer this question, Rebecca would need less than 2/3 cup of butter because she is not making the whole recipe. So you would be multiplying the fractions because you are taking part of a number. really part of a part. You're taking 2/3 of 1/2. Okay. So what you would have 2/3 times 1/2, which gives you 2/6, which divide by 2 simplifies to 1/3. So she just needs 1/3 cup of butter. Now let me draw you a picture to give you a better understanding. So right here, if you have a stick of butter, okay, so let me draw you a picture here. Here is a stick of butter, and here is the equivalent amount of stick of butter. Alright, so she needs 2/3 to make a whole pan. So let's just pretend like this is the whole pan. Okay, so she needs the whole pan. Here's the whole pan of brownies. She uses the 2/3. Okay, and then here is 1/3. So in order to make the whole pan, she needs this much butter. Okay. Now she only wants to make half a pan. So here is a half pan brownies. Okay. She has 2/3 and 1/3. Now we're going to go in, and she only wants to make the half pan brownies. So if I know that 2/3 is equivalent to 4/6, 1/2 right here is equivalent to 3/6, 1/3 is equivalent to 2/6. Okay. If she needs to make the half pan of brownies, that means she's only going to need 1/3 of the butter to make the half pan of brownies instead of 2/3 for the whole pan. Okay, if that helps, there's your picture. Alright, Rams, good job and good luck on your test tomorrow. You are going to do awesome, and you